Okay, I'll call the May 12th finance meeting in order. We'll take a roll call or just leave it? No. You guys are good, okay. Okay, first agenda, Finance Committee minutes from April 21st, 2025.
I'll move further adoption.
Second.
Motion by Burke, second by Davis. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, and B, Finance Committee minutes from May 6th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Davis. I'll second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, section 300 business. No, it's no sorry. No finance committee meeting will be held on May 26th because of Memorial Day.
If there is something that needs to come up, then we would just incorporate it as a precursor to the council meeting either next week or the following council meeting. At this point, I don't have anything from departments.
Any part B, review and take action, approve one-step adjustment for wastewater division employee. Tim?
Work, there we go. So yeah, we have three of these for tonight. A lot of our new staff is doing a fantastic job of completing the certifications, which is exactly what we want them to be doing. So we're really thrilled about it. So the first one is for Jake Nails. He has completed.
Point of order, can you
Yeah.
just give me the name again?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Jake Nails. Yep, and he passed another DNR certification. Let's see. Does it say which one? Oh, yeah. Let's see, he passed the basic solid separation exam. So we're recommending that he be moved from grade H, step 7 to grade H, step 8. And that this step would be retroactive back to the date, April 30th, which is the day that he completed that exam.
But your name actually is.
Oh, sorry, my name? Oh, sorry, I
Yeah.
probably didn't say it.
Yeah.
My name's Tim Hayden. I'm the assistant manager of the water and wastewater department.
Hayden, Tim Hayden.
Yep.
I would move to have Jake Nels move from grade H step 7 to grade H step 8 retroactive to April 30th of this year.
Okay, motion by Lampy,
Second.
second by Davis. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Just a point of clarification again too. If we're spending money, is that a roll call or not a roll call?
We've not done roll call. It's within their budget. Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, just step there, Tim, would be good.
Yeah.
Part C, review and take action, approve a one-step adjustment for wastewater division employee.
So again, this individual, his name is Jay Perkel. And he had passed the basic suspendeds growth process exam from the DNR. So we are recommending per the policy that Jay Perkel be moved from grade F, step 6 to grade F, step 7. And again, this will be retroactive to April 30th, 2025. The current pay period beginning date.
Ms. Davis,
I make a motion to approve Jay Parkle to move from grade F step 6 to grade F step 7 retroactive April 30th, 2025.
okay, motion by Davis. Second by Lampy. Any further discussion on it? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. D, review and take possible action, approve a one-step adjustment for water systems employee.
Yes, so this individual is Scott Blazing. Scott is he's one of our maintenance staff. And the maintenance staff consists, we work on both water and wastewater things. So he's done a great job finishing up his wastewater exams, and now he's working on the water exams. So he passed 2 exams, distribution and groundwater. And but he is at the step 11, so it's the 1 step. So we're recommending Scott Blazing move from grade J step 10 to grade J step 11. And same exam day, because the DNR offers these exams like 4 times a year. So back to April 30th, 2025.
Motion to approve Scott Blazing to move from grade J step 10 to grade J step 11, retroactive April 30th, 2025.
Okay, motion by Davis, second by Lampy. Any further discussion?
Yeah, and,
Mr. Berg?
yep. And so Tim, just procedurally, based on passing these tests, they're entitled to this type of a step?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
So it's just a procedural thing we're
It's
doing.
just a procedural thing. Yeah, it's in the policy
Yeah,
manual,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right. It's just
But we have to, it can't be done
officially-
administratively, we have to. do it
right,
through-
officially it comes here for approval, but yes.
Any more comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayden. Section E, review and take action, recommend resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $19 million general obligation promissory notes.
We tend to borrow our money earlier in the years, but this year, because it made more sense for us to consolidate both our annual borrowing with the refinancing of the fire station, it's been postponed until this time of the year in order to save some money on some of the overall closing costs and the like. So Brad is here from Baird to present the proposal on that. This includes effectively the refinancing of the fire station, which those final numbers are yet to be figured out by me. But then as well, the borrowing of $4.25 million for what was in the budget for the 2025 borrow. Brad?
Okay, thank you. I'll walk through the presentation material that was included with your agenda packet and answer any questions. In terms of a summary of this financing, the total borrowing amount is estimated at $18,585,000. And that's really split into 2 components, as Mark indicated. There's the long-term funding or the refinancing of the fire station note. And there's also the funding of the city's capital program at $4,250,000. In terms of structure, there's a 20-year repayment or 19-year repayment on this, with the final payment scheduled for June 1st of 2044. I'll go in the next page, I'll get into a little more detail because we're not changing the overall approach that the city has used in the past of paying for its annual capital program over an 8-year period. We are combining that with this into a larger issue, which is including that fire station refinancing. And that had been planned to be repaid over a 19-year period. So we're combining those 2 components into one borrowing to minimize issuance cost for the city. The first interest would be payable beginning on June 1st of next year, and then semi-annually each June and December until the debt's retired. In terms of a call feature, the maturities of 2035 through 2044 would be callable or prepayable at the city's option, beginning on June 1st of 2034. Estimated interest rate is 4.56%. What you're considering tonight is a resolution that establishes a narrow set of parameters. And if those parameters are met, then this debt would be awarded outside of a scheduled council meeting. This approach is similar to the approach the city used last year for its debt issuance, and it provides significant flexibility. So we can avoid dates where there's major economic announcements. We can avoid dates of market volatility or high volume in the market to not be limited to just 1 or 2 days per month to finalize this issuance. So some of the key parameters include a not to exceed borrowing amount, not to exceed interest rate, which is 5.25%. The maturity schedule is one of the parameters. And then we do have the authority, with the resolutions adopted, to adjust individual principal payments by up to $1.5 million. That's included just so we can hit the debt structure targets that the city has established. So we can move principal around up until the time we finalize. In terms of the timeline, this would go with your approval tonight. This would go in front of the council at its meeting next week. I'd be at that meeting to answer questions or make a similar presentation if you like. Baird and city staff we've already started the process of preparing for this issuance. We're preparing the offering statement, which is called an official statement. We're going to have a rating call with Moody's later this week. The rating call is coming up yet. Sorry. So, and then once those pieces are in place, Baird will start marketing these notes out to investors nationwide. It's expected we would finalize interest rates on June 5th, but that's the date where we have flexibility to move that date around. And we can only finalize if all of these parameters are met. Then the closing would take place July 1st. That's the date the city would receive its funds. And the short-term note that financed the fire station construction would be retired on July 7th.
Brett?
Mhm.
Okay, let me, again, I'm new on the council again after being off 6 years, but tell me, if we typically pay our capital projects over, you said an 8-year period?
Yeah.
On debt service, and we're gonna do this one over 19?
Yes.
So what is the additional interest if we follow the schedule and we don't pay it off early? What is it? What the impact? Even though we're saving some money on doing this in a similar type of consolidated way by doing the two together versus separately, the cost of that borrowing over that longer period of time clearly is going to be a lot of additional interest, isn't it?
Well, there's additional interest by having a repayment period of 19 years versus 8 years. And in fact, on the next page, I provide a little bit more detail on that, where I start to provide detail of the financing plan. But I should clarify what I had said with the city's 8-year financing for its typical, that's really for its routine capital programs. So roads and equipment and things that you would borrow for every year. When the city has significant one-time infrastructure facility, it's typical for Watertown to borrow over an extended period of time, up to 20 years. So when we did finance the library, for example, that was a longer term financing. I've got placeholders in this plan for potential future financings. No commitment tonight, but just for planning purposes, we include those. So those are that's tied to the facility study that the city recently completed. Those would be repaid over a longer time period because of the very long life of the asset and the significant cost of the facilities.
No, I agree with that. But again, if you're talking 2 or 3 million, I understand, but yeah, you said 5 million, it might help justify a longer debt service payment schedule.
Yeah, it's
the
not
5
so much the
million?
borrowing amount, it's the projects that's being financed.
Yeah.
So you're financing a facility that's going to have a 50+ year life, hopefully. And we're trying to better match that repayment with the asset's life.
Yeah.
And under Wisconsin statute, we're limited to a 20-year repayment period for general obligation debt.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it.
Ms. Davis.
I don't want to get ahead of your presentation, but I'm looking in our packet where it has the breakdown of the original, do you go by NANS? Or,
Yeah,
yep.
NANS.
And then refunding of NAN, and then 2025 CIP,
Yeah.
which is 4.25. And that's still showing an 8-year return or pay it back.
That's right.
So for that 4.25, which is our normal yearly borrowing for roads, is the plan still to pay that amount back in 8 years?
Yes. So what this is showing, I'm separating out the two components of the financing. But when this is issued, I'll add the principal from the fire station portion to the principal from the 8-year portion. We'll just add those in total, and that's what will be issued. That's what the investors will see and what they'll purchase. So on that plan, you can see the long-term financing of the fire station refunding, and that's where that interest payment is. If you look to there's 14,335,000 of principal, and next to that, just under $8.6 million of interest that would be paid over that 19-year period. The interest payment that's projected for the CIP portion of the financing is $969,000. There's placeholders for additional or future financings. The city council, the finance committee will retain flexibility as to whether or not those financings are authorized, what the repayment structure looks like. This is just a sample of one scenario where we've been looking at, Mark and I have been looking at several different financing scenarios for this. So depending on the plan of action that council moves forward with, we'd have to consider flexibility to modify those repayments. And then on the last page of the presentation packet, you'll see a column that says future CIP borrowings. That column represents your annual routine project or your routine type CIP financings at $4.5 million, again, repaid over an 8-year period. So for planning purposes, we're building in or we're modeling out what the debt service budget would look like for the city moving forward if these future financings are adopted. So
Brett, why is there no principal payment on 2028?
that's to meet the structuring targets that we're trying to achieve. So if you go to this column way on the right-hand side here, that last page, you'll see that we've developed a structure where annual debt service increases by about $400,000 up until 2034, and then it levels for a year, and then we actually see a reduction in annual debt service payments. I needed to have zero principal payment in 2028 to achieve this target. So overall, this is a plan that the city can feel comfortable that that your debt service levy would eventually level off, and it's projected to level off in a 9-year period. And that includes some pretty significant facilities projects as a part of this plan. So I can answer additional questions. I can go into more detail if you like.
If you don't mind, I apologize just for asking, but I need to understand better. So tell me on that last page where you're showing, or the one where you've got building project for 26, 27, 28, 29.
Yeah.
What's the significance of those 4 columns? Tell me how that works.
Those are the columns that would fund the projects identified in the facilities study that the council or the city had prepared last fall, and it's funding the projects over a 3-year period. So that's the borrowing amount to fund a city hall. Mark, if you could help me with the other 2 projects, there was a DPW.
Works, yeah, an addition onto the DPW streets department, the modifications on the health department that were reviewed not too long ago in last week's meeting, I think, and then Parks building.
So those are included only as placeholders. If none of those projects are approved, we would just carve those out of this financing plan.
Okay. And the last question again would be on the fire station project. What are you're using 14,630,000, and you say that that's not necessarily an all-inclusive number because there are still costs that are needing to be included?
So the 14,630,000 was the original financing amount, the original note anticipation note to fund the fire station construction. It included all issuance cost also associated with the financing. The long-term debt to retire that short-term financing is 14,335,000, and it also includes the costs of the issuance. So the city would not have to come up with additional funds somewhere from another source to pay issuance costs.
Schwanappi.
My question has to do with the interest anticipated when we put together the notice versus what we're actually looking at for execution.
Which are you referring to, like the original plans that we did for the note anticipation note, or what?
Correct, the 1463 versus what we're looking at. actually executing the promissory notes for.
I'm just checking if I may not have that with me.
Well, there is notation on page 18 of the packet, page 3 of the information shared. There's a note there that's just, TIC.
Mhm.
Is that a valid comparison?
TIC is the interest rate that we're expecting. Yeah, it stands for
Okay.
true interest cost. And I can pull that. I don't have the initial analysis from 2024 with me, but I can have that at the council meeting and I can answer that question then.
Yeah, I mean, just basically it looks close, but I thought that when we did the analysis of the late 2023, I thought we actually ran this at about as high as 5 in terms of an interest rate.
That sounds right. I mean, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I try to be really conservative for these projections because like you said, it's 23, we were better than 2 years away from the long-term financing. So I didn't want to be in front of the council projecting a 3% interest rate or something, but I can look up those rates that I used and provide that information.
Yeah, I think that might be one key thing to look at, just basically so we know if this issuance is better or worse than our final decision at council when we basically put together the notification.
Sure.
So that kind of goes along with my question, the the NAN is 3.95% interest rate.
Yep.
And the refunding of that would be 4.65. So two-part question. Do those types of devices, the NAN, tend to be lower interest rate? Or are we just seeing an increase in interest rates overall and that are applied across regardless of the product?
So in general, the NAN does typically have a lower interest rate, and it really has to do with the repayment period. In this case, it was a short-term loan, about an 18-month loan
Okay.
versus nearly a 20-year loan. So it's similar to like a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year. The 30-year is typically higher. It's the same concept here.
And you said it's an 18-month repayment or?
It was issued on April 1st of 24 and it's due this coming
Okay.
October 1st. So 18 months.
All right, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion for this action. Any more comments? Ms. Davis,
I will make a motion to authorize the issuance and establishing parameters as specified for the sale of not to exceed 19 million. There, Mr. Lampy pointed out there's a little typo in our agenda to that dollar amount, but 19 million general obligation promissory notes with the parameters for the interest rate as specified there in the
Okay.
packet.
it was 18. Please make sure it doesn't go over 19, right? We're correct on that? Okay. Motion by Davis.
Second.
Second by Lampy. I was about to do it myself, but okay. Any further discussion, Mr. Lampy?
So in the packet, starting on page 22, there's a fairly detailed resolution. I believe the intent is to invoke that resolution.
As part of the
Well-
motion?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a sample resolution based on the key parameters that we're recommending. Is that true?
Yes.
Thank you.
The resolution it's not a sample resolution. It's the actual resolution that for your motion, you would be adopting, and then it would go to council for adoption. Then once we're ready to issue these notes, then as long as we meet the parameters established with this resolution, the notes can be issued.
So would you prefer I amended my motion to adopt the resolution found in our packet? I will do that. I'll make a motion to amend.
These are second by Lampy, okay. To adopt the resolution. Okay, any further discussion on it?
Again, Brett, when you show the principal payments each year of this 19 million roughly a year, they're showing principal that goes, it fluctuates a lot from a low of 575,000 to $1,400,000, and so that type of variance is needed to fit the parameters.
Yeah, that type of variance is really to meet the debt structure that the city wants, to have a nice smooth debt payments and not increases or decreases. So again, if I can make a comparison to a home mortgage, if you have a brand new home mortgage, your first payments have very high interest relative to the amount of principal paid off. And as you make those last set of payments, the principal payments exceed the interest payments. This is the same concept. And I would add, it's very common. This is not at all out of the ordinary for debt issued in Wisconsin.
Thank you for coming up a few times. Any more comments? Yeah, take the roll then. Davis,
Aye.
Lampy,
Aye.
Bird,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Stocks, aye. Okay. Next, under business. F, review and discuss Intrepid Investments update.
Thank you. Not the update I was hoping to bring tonight. Had originally been planning for tonight's meeting to have the developers here to present the scope of a future TIF request, but the memo's pretty self-explanatory that was included in your packet. Last week, Mayor Stocks and I had a chance to talk at length about the proposed condo project for the North First Street parking lot. Mayor Stocks expressed some deep reservations about that proposed project. On Thursday of last week, I relayed those concerns to the developers, and they decided they would rather hit pause at this time and discontinue any work on development of those two sites. So I would say they left it cordial. Doesn't close the door on them doing a future project here in Watertown, but for the time being, they would rather not expend additional resources and effort on that project.
Ms. Davis.
Two questions. Were you under did you believe that they were ready to make a presentation tonight and they would be ready to go forward with it tonight?
We had packet materials ready, yes.
Okay. Follow-up question. The mayor, the memo doesn't really specify, Mayor Stocks, what your concerns were with the project. Can you share some of those concerns with us tonight?
My concerns were dealing with Main Street, losing their parking during the 2028 construction, so I had told Mason that I just had reservations on going through the project. Never spoke to Intrepid at all, just I think Mason took on my words, my concerns a little bit, what could do with it. And he had just told Intrepid themselves, and they had I think it was last Thursday, Thursday morning, Mason emailed, they had talked to him either Wednesday or Thursday, and
It was on
decided to hold-
Thursday.
Thursday, decided to hold off, yeah.
So just parking concerns? And so they're also not going to go forward with the Water Street at this time? apartment?
Correct.
And my concerns are with the First Street parking only, nothing to do with the other on Water Street, yeah. Mr. Berg?
You know, I concur with our mayor on this one, and I appreciate his willingness to take a strong position on that decision. It is a comparatively small project. It was gonna obviously absorb, I don't know the numbers again because I'm trying to get on top of some of the numbers here, but I know I understood 40 plus type of parking stall, 40 to 50, whatever that number might be, subtracting from a parking lot that has an active use right now. So that was concerning for the amount of investment on that portion of land. It seemed like a mistake to give that permission, but I'm disappointed in that developer. Their larger investment is on the 1 acre that was next to Benson Square, Town Square. And for them to give up on a larger project because of a smaller development is disappointing for me, because I would have been more receptive to them. I think even our mayor is implying that he was not necessarily against them on that. And I think the issue of parking is a bigger issue than we're giving it for attention. At the moment, it may be dormant because we don't have some of the things that need to be done to make revitalization and redevelopment in the downtown area more lively. But parking will continue to be a bigger issue. And there's a property owner that acquired a building downtown that has a strong need for parking. I'm aware of him just based on a recent conversation I had, and there's others that I'm aware of. So I'm feeling that decision recommending them not to maybe go forward on that smaller project made sense. Again, I wish they would at least know from individual members of the finance that I was receptive to them being a good developer for the other part, and we need something there. I've already told you other ideas that might work if we can't get development there, but I'd just as soon have development if we can.
I would too, yeah. I think, at some point, the council as a whole might have to reset expectations of what develops there. We've had 3 developers look at that site now, and unfortunately, a project hasn't gone forward. I'm talking about South Water Street by the town square. It's a great location. It's also a smaller parcel. It's about 0.7 acres, and it is challenging from an engineering standpoint. Whatever project develops forward is, if it's a multifamily type of project that we've looked before, there realistically will be a large TIF request. It's very hard to get around that. And if that's not something maybe this council is receptive to, it might be time to reevaluate and look at other options for the site. So, but that's not for me to decide, so.
It is about 3/4 of an acre, I believe, right? 0.77 or so.
Around
It's a
that.
small, yeah.
I thought at one time it was an acre of land. Did we have subtractions that made it smaller, or?
I know it's under an acre. I believe it's about 0.7 acres or just above that. So.
Nothing that, anybody else have any comments or Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Just another question. Is it your understanding from the developer's perspective that they needed both locations to make it financially viable for them?
I don't know if it was either other. I think, they felt they had spent a good amount of time on this, and they did, they were very responsive to staff feedback on their site plan, and I think they just didn't want to have to come here and have to win over approvals. So they're a very active developer. They have other projects going on in Jefferson County. So I just think they didn't want to expend more time arguing for approval on a project like this.
Mr. Lampy.
I just want to say thank you for managing the expectations and working with the developer on this one. I know it's been a bit of a roller coaster, and this is a site that's seen a few developments, so just thank you.
Happy to help, and maybe North First Street does stay a parking lot through 2028, and then maybe after that, then it's time to revisit. So.
Anybody else have questions, Mr. Becker? Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much. Okay, G, review and take possible action, emergency vehicle preemption contract.
Hi, so the memo outlines the Mio Vision as the preferred vendor for the Opticom emergency vehicle preemption. For Dana and Mr. Lampy, I just want to point out that this is a different recommendation that had been coming previously. And just based on technology changes and accessibility to things, Wayland VSG, in the time that it was initially studied, before I came here, it wasn't an option, but now it is. So that's just the clarifying information that you may be asking for. The memo explains the rest, so unless you have
Yeah, I'll
questions.
just look at the memo. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Davis.
And this is already budgeted, approved, and you're just looking for a recommendation to go forward.
To
with
move
it.
forward with this
Yes.
portion of that, because
It
it was
falls-
a.
And
large
it looks
number.
like the Mid-America Signal Opticon system itself is coming well below budget. And I do understand that you need the remaining to outfit your vehicles, but
Mhm. Yep.
so that amount was pretty much on target, so that's
Right.
good.
Yeah, I did, initially, when I first started here last year, I just kind of tried to wrap my head around it to make sure like what we came in for and asking for was appropriate, and it was. And then, in the last couple of months, I did a deep dive into all the options to make sure like my recommendation was something that we truly all believed in as a department, so.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Go on, Mr. Lampy. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm very excited by this, as you probably know. This is something that we've been talking about in terms of all the way back to the fire station siting. This system in particular was one of the reasons that some of us thought the siting of the station on the south side was acceptable in order to get up to places like Country Club. Basically, how do you get through all of those lights? And I know that's an area that Aldersmith serves and has basically advocated for when we were looking at the siting of that. Excited also in terms of how this is implemented. We are somewhat dependent, it looks like, on cellular networks. So there are certain services I think that we need to be aware of that are dependent on different data services. We have, for example, radio services that are not dependent on cellular. This is a service that potentially would be dependent. But as the memo stated, there's other technical options that come with their own limitations. So this one is a pretty good option, and cell service, of course, is built to be somewhat regionally redundant to move through an area.
Right, and this system with the Wayland VSG and the Mio Vision, it'll actually notify us when the cell service is down or if there's issues, so that we'll be notified immediately to be able to rectify it. And then if we are working with them to see about like redundancy in the system, because we have the Wayland VSG and a Cradle Point, if one drops, can it automatically sync up with the other one? So we're looking at all of those things.
So my questions pertain, I think, to the financial piece here. It looks like we're looking for authorization tonight for the system itself, the cloud EVP system. Do we need to do a financial authorization for the retrofit, or is that built in somewhere else?
It's, unless Mark has something else to say, it's my understanding that all the other purchases are within the financial policy for me to purchase those with Mark's approval. This is the only one that was over the threshold to be needing financial approval.
Great. Other question is, this looks like this covers 11 lights and 13 vehicles.
Yes.
Are there other retrofits on top of the 13? Are there retrofits included in the 13, or how does that work?
Right, so it'll retrofit about 5 vehicles. The rest of our vehicles are already Wayland VSG accepting. So every apparatus in the fire department will have that. If the police and DPW change their mind, I know it was talked about initially, they would be on board with it. But then when I had discussions with them, we explored it and we found different ways to make it work, but it would mean like only half of the police vehicles or only half of the fire vehicles could have it. And they, both DPW and police have said, we're good. We don't want it. I'm like, okay. So we built it initially with them included and then adjusted things and then built it out to this.
Great.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for doing all the research and legwork on this. This has been a couple of years coming.
Yes.
Yeah, Chief, if you would, tell me sort of operationally, how is this system gonna work? Just from a layperson standpoint of watching it in play, how does it play out? Based on a call, leaving the station, what is it gonna do to make them get to their destination in a timely way?
So what it does is the Wayland VSG is GPS tracking all of our apparatus in real time. and it can tell if we're driving emergently or not emergently. So lights and sirens, or if we're driving like normal people. When the vehicle is in emergency mode with the lights and sirens going, it'll signal to the Opticom MioVision, and it'll look at the route and say, okay, this is the traffic signal coming up. We know you're going north on 26, and it'll then send a signal to the traffic light to change it from red to green so that we have the green right of way. And the reason that this is preferred with this rather than like the radio line of sight is because it's GPS. And so the turn that we need to make coming out of Bernard Street onto 26 north or south, it just wouldn't give us enough time to have the light signal see it, receive it, make the change. We can set up parameters by geofencing and say, okay, 99% of the time, this is what we're gonna be doing. And so it'll change it for us as we're coming out off of the driveway.
That's pretty cool.
So then it sends a signal to the it sends a signal from the vehicle, says, hey, we're coming here. The light is red. We need it to be green so we can have the right of way going through it.
But visually, if you're a driver coming into the other side of that intersection and it goes where you think prior to that change, is it gonna cause confusion for the driver?
Nope, it would be like, if you're driving down the road and the lights change from, you have a green light and then it changes to red. So it'll have a green light, it'll go to yellow and then turn to red as it then turns our right of way on. It's like a normal traffic signal. It just changes when it changes it rather than at its scheduled pace.
It doesn't cause confusion for the intersection.
People are confused all the time when lights and sirens are coming, but no, it shouldn't cause confusion. Oh my gosh, what is going on? It's not gonna have green lights in all 4 directions. It would just change which lane is, or which direction is green.
And in all the new apparatus that we acquire, are they gonna have that, you're saying that some of ours have it, the hardware, but that the older ones don't, but the new equipment and vehicles, whatever, they'll have it typically
Yep.
already in?
Yep, so this is standard equipment that's coming on all of our vehicles. We've had it's coming with our ladder truck, it'll be on our ambulance. The new water truck that we ordered, that'll all have this in it or will be part of it in any future orders. This is just part of building a fire truck now, is having this component in it, because it also controls our lights. It shows us our maintenance. It tells us when we have a check engine light. It can tell me how fast people are driving, when they drive through a red light, all of the things. So it's like having a mother bear in your pocket all the time, I guess. So the Wayland VSG is like a standard piece of equipment that we purchase with our apparatus going forward. Any other questions?
Sounds interesting, yeah.
It is, it's very fascinating.
So it could potentially, if someone's intersection turns green, it could potentially just go yellow like a couple of seconds later.
It may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But give them warning time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lampy?
I guess I'd like to move to approve to proceed with the purchase of the MioVision Opticom Cloud EVP system for Mid-American Signal for the amount shown in the memo.
Okay, motion by Lampy,
Second.
second by Davis. All right, any further discussion or questions? Chief's up there. Okay, all right. Davis,
Aye.
Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Stocks, aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor Stocks, I just want to ask for clarity. I see our older person, Smith is, virtually at the meeting.
Mhm.
Are you aware? I saw him raise his hand, but do you have the awareness of whether he wants to? Either,
I can't, I guess I was looking for a,
just so you have.
I'm
some-
sorry, yeah. Mr. Smith, did I miss anything? Did you want to make a comment?
Well, after the motion had been made, I was going to second the motion,
Okay,
but it went out. But it was seconded by another.
okay. Sorry, I'll keep an eye out for your hand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burke, for making me aware.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, we're on H, right? Yeah, review and take possible action, Riverfest 2025 extraordinary fee reduction.
Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from item H.
Okay, so noted. I can look at. We can do a, motion first, we can discuss after.
Let me,
What do you wanna do? Mr.
we're on
Berg,
that- we're on that topic right now.
okay?
I see you gave us, or Mark did, some of these options, A through, F? Mark? Yeah. Right. Okay, and then I see in showing, on one of your sheets that you've got, expenditures for this, 2024. It looks like it was 53,678.
That's the estimate for 2025.
Well, that's the estimate. Okay. All right, so and then you're looking at their down payment, 50% down payment due. Okay, so then that was showing this balance that we heard about at our last meeting, right? That 37,000.
37,765 was the 2024 total charge.
Right. So if we have an estimate from that previous year of roughly 54,000, that one that has cost sharing with a limit, you used 50,000 for your benchmark, or what made you pick 50 versus a different number?
Based on conversation from our closed session of 2 weeks ago.
I,
So,
Ms. Davis,
maybe I'll refrain.
I'll go back to some of that discussion then on maybe cost sharing. Item B to me has some appeal, but I'd suggest 60,000 as a number versus 50. You know, that we would do, we would share equally up to 60,000, and then after that amount, then it says here with excess cost exceeding, again, 60,000 that would be covered by the festival. So I think that has some appeal to me on some method of sharing cost. If up to 60,000, their contribution would be 30,000, and then obviously anything after that would be their cost.
Ms. Davis,
I also am favorable to be cost sharing with limit, but I do concur with the $50,000 amount. Here's my thought process on that. We're limited as a city as to revenue that can come in. And it would be to the benefit of the city taxpayers to know that their cost for contributing to Riverfest would be limited to $25,000, which would be half of $50,000. I'm uncomfortable with going higher than that because we as a city aren't in charge of the event. So the expanse of the event, the requests of the event planners is out of our control to a certain degree. And I would like to encourage and incentivize the event planners to continue what they've been doing, which is to keep costs down. And so $25,000 investment by city taxpayers into the Riverfest would be a good for budgeting purposes. It's also good for our departments. They need to know what this is going to cost them in terms of their budget for planning purposes. And so I'm comfortable with $50,000. So for example, for this year, the total estimated amount is roughly $53,000. That has the city contributing $25,000 to the event, and it has the organizers, the Watertown Riverfest Inc., at about $28,000 towards the event. So that's where I am. I'm good with $50,000 because that $25,000 in the scope of our budget is an investment. I can't think of very many other ways that we invest that much into tourism. And so I'm comfortable with $50,000, but I do like B as well, Mr. Berg.
Any further comments? I don't think we have a motion
I
yet.
think Alderman Smith would.
Mr. Smith? You want to say anything, Mr. Smith? Sorry.
I'm not sure. Was there a motion previously made?
I don't believe we did one yet. I think we're just discussing a little bit the different
Okay.
options, I think, before someone makes a motion.
Yeah. Well, my comment would be that I think that Alderman Berg's perspective on this is one that I would support. It seems to me that the capping of the city contribution at $30,000 is not excessive, considering the return that Riverfest brings to the community. It's a fixed amount that will be something that we can plan on. And the motive for Riverfest to keep the expenses reasonably low, or as low as possible, is actually augmented by the fact that they would owe everything over the $60,000 total. So as a partnership contribution on a regular annual basis, I would support $60,000 being the amount that would be split, with Riverfest picking up any additional cost.
In response, I would, having heard the comment, I was throwing it out for discussion, having heard that there's some support for that. I would suggest that I would amend option B, where it shows 50,000 twice. It shows it 50,000 of city services with excess cost exceeding 50,000 covered by the festival. I would, in both examples of 50, I would move that we make that 60,000 in both cases and make that a motion.
So you're making a motion that the city would share half of up to 60,000.
On that sentence B, where it shows 50,000 twice, in that sentence, I'm asking in each case that it be 60,000 versus the 50,000 being suggested in that option.
Okay, I got a motion by Berg,
Second.
a second by Smith. I'll ask for further discussion.
I have a question for Mr. Stevens. Mr. Stevens, would this have to be an add to the budget then of $30,000 potentially? Or 25, I guess, would be the more or closer estimate. So when we get to budget time, are we effectively adding $25,000 to the city budget in expenditures? Or
We're-
30?
We're actually reducing our revenue expectation by 25,000.
We are reducing our revenue expectation. So
Has the
how,
same net
yes.
impact.
Can you, it may be too much into the weeds for right now, but I am curious. Can you help me visualize where this would be inserted in the budget or how it would be inserted?
It's actually going to be in a variety of accounts. So we did the work with the 2024 fee. So the $37,000, excuse me, that needed to be reduced to $25,000. We just allocated the reduction across based on percentages of the charges. And also a little bit of, well, most of the reduction was on the police side of things. And then some of the, streets and parks and all. So it reduces revenue and or in the case of police, it's an impact on their overtime expense. And so the overtime expense will go up.
Mhm. So it is essentially an additional cost city taxpayers will bear.
Yeah, in year 25, I'm actually going to have to influence the budget with the differential between the 24 because the books were closed. So we have to expend the difference between the 37,700 and 25,000 as an expense addition in 25. And then in addition to that, whatever the decision is now,
So it's a double hit this year
it will be.
to taxpayers.
Mr. Berg?
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the numbers, but I think we're missing the point. There are very, very few examples in our town, in our city, that actually have the economic benefit of bringing in potentially tens of thousands of people, our local residents, to spend money and to generate a good feeling as far as being members of this community. And, you know, I'm on the tourism board as one of my assignments that I was given. You can't find a better example of tourism to promote our city in a healthy, positive way than this. And when you look at the way we spend money, you know, it's beyond discussion. For us to incentivize an event that has this benefit of, and whether it's 30,000, 40,000, it used to be 50,000 people over a 4-day period based on weather. Everybody knows the benefit is huge. And it would be penny wise and pound foolish to try to save 5,000 and think that we're being fiscally responsible when we have the ability to bring in people that we're not otherwise bringing in, and they're spending money in town. Some of them, if they're going to be here for 4 days, they might be at a motel and they'll spend money at the motel, or they're going to go to a restaurant beyond what they do. They're going to go somewhere else with their time. They're going to buy gas in this town. I mean, you cannot find an example with all the economic benefit that would even come close to this and any other example of an event. And to be trying to make, and what we did to be responsible to the taxpayers, we said, we're going to cap it at 60,000. Everything after that has to be paid for by the festival. Now, one of the options that was here, which I didn't suggest, was to cap it at 25,000, and everything after that would just be that amount. Or it could be, you know, splitting cost all the way till whatever that cost is. And there's all kinds of options here that were less attractive, less fiscally responsible. This one mixes responsibility of giving it back to the festival after a certain number, but it has us sharing cost. And like we've said, and I've said, the contribution of 30,000 for this amount of benefit is, there's no other example that comes even close to this on the benefit. So I would encourage everybody to vote for it.
Ms. Davis?
Mr. Berg, I'm in agreement with you. I do see the benefit. I just want us to be very clear as to what we're doing here, because it is a change from the original agreement. And the original agreement was for Watertown Riverfest Inc. to cover the costs. And I understand that as they've had success over the last couple of years, there's a coming back to ask for a partnership financially. But I think it is good to address the actual ramifications and to realize that there is a cost that comes to this. But I understand your point, and I agree with your point that it is a valuable tourist event in the city.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, Riverfest has a long and illustrious history with our city, and the financial relationship between Riverfest and the city has changed quite significantly over time. But I think it's important to remember that in the early years, and I don't have the exact time frame to set it exactly for you, but for many, many years, Riverfest did not contribute to the expenses that the city was paying for to make Riverfest possible. And over the course of time, the contribution from the Riverfest committee gradually increased. And from my perspective, rather than looking at this from the point of view of a $30,000 city potential liability, I would like to emphasize the fact that we are getting a substantial contribution from the Riverfest committee. If ours is 30,000 under this proposal, Riverfest would also be contributing $30,000. and everything beyond the $60,000. That is markedly different than the way that it was structured in the early going. And I believe that it is a very wise investment by the city to be willing to contribute that $30,000. And I believe it is the perfect example of a partnership with a remarkable committee that has done so much for the city over so many years. And I think that it is a fair and balanced approach and something that will serve the city very well.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Stevens, the cost, was that 53,000 was the estimate this year? So I think we're all in agreement that Best has to continue. I was siding more with Ms. Davis and I was thinking half of 50,000 myself. I like that number when she gave first. It's not much over the way it is. If we're helping out with 25,000, Riverfest is on 27 right now. It can always be adjusted in the future. Any further comments? Okay. Take the roll in. On for explain half the 60,000, Davis?
Aye.
Sorry. Berg,
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
You're right, on my motion?
Yes,
your
for
motion.
60,000, yes, sorry. Probably should have started with you. I'll start over. Berg.
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Stocks, aye. Davis,
Aye.
all right, motion passes. Okay, we're on I, review and take action, accept bid for publication of council proceedings and city advertising and designate official city newspaper.
I'll move for adoption.
Okay, motion by Berg for adoption,
Second. Hope so. Go ahead.
and you're back with us, right, Mr. Lampy?
I am.
And second by Lampy. Okay, any questions or comments? Let's take a roll for that. Or no, I can't. All right. No, we're spending money, so, okay. Any further discussion on it? Okay, Davis,
Aye.
Lampy?
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. J, review and discuss current insurance loss run history.
Periodically, I provide this to our finance committee. It's just an FYI, unless you have any questions that I would have to then go back and review.
Mr. Lampy,
I just wanted to say thank you. I know this is one of the things that we had asked for a couple of years ago. This is helpful every time it appears.
anyone else? Okay. Okay. Convene closed session per 19.85 to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Claim of Intertech PSI, Johnsonville Sausage Project.
I would so move.
Motion to go into closed session,
Second.
second by Berg. Any discussion? Okay, Davis,
Aye.
Lampy?
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We should have made him.
Stop the record.
Right here?
Yes.